So, first question was, is it okay if I record this interview?
Uh,
Which you already answered yes.
you
Um,
didn't sorry.
I did, yes. Um, now, where did you go to school?
So I have my bachelor's in health and human services from UB, and then my master's in mental health counseling from Madai.
Sorry, say that one more time. My computer's mad low. I just thought about that. I could hear it, but that probably wouldn't be able to hear you recording it.
That's okay. I have my bachelor's in health and human services from UB and my master's in mental health counseling from Madai College.
That's awesome. And where did you go to high school?
Cheektowaga Central.
Cheektowaga Central. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, were you offered a communications class in secondary school? And if you were, was it mandatory?
Um, no, I was not offered one. I think probably the closest I had taken like a Psych 101 uh like college credit course my senior year. But no, it was not mandatory.
What degrees and licenses do you have or do you hold?
So I have a license in mental health counseling, which is an LMHC, New York State licensure. Do you want the license number?
I don't think I need it.
Okay. If you do decide you want it, you can look it up on the Office of Professions website.
Okay. All right, cool. Um, let's see. What do you do for a living?
I am a substance use and mental health counselor for Horizon Health Services outpatient program in the KBF.
Okay. For those of them who don't know, what do you do at Horizons?
So I do a lot of different things here. Most recently, I have started doing all of the intake. So our clinic has walk-in hours for new patients who would like to come in to get an eval, whether they're self-referred, referred by a legal source. So I kind of do all the intakes and then triage them to the counselor that's going to kind of best fit their match or complete their whole assessment if they're not recommended for treatment. But outside of that, I also do one-on-one counseling and carry a small caseload, as well as run group therapy. So my specialties here are I run our substance use intensive outpatient program for high risk substance users. I also concentrate on our legal population, so treatment court patients, parolees, sex offenders, stuff like
Um, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm going to get back to groups here in a second. Well, actually, we can go ahead and groups. If you run groups, what groups do you run? Or I was going to ask that, do you run groups, and if so, which ones?
that. Mm-hmm. So my time at Horizon, I've run a lot of different types of groups. Currently, I'm running our substance use intensive outpatient program, which is consists of group therapy 3 times a week, and then I'm running a normative care anxiety group. But in the past, I've also run, oh my gosh, DBT skills group, new ways of thinking group, which is very cognitive behavioral therapy based. I've run anxiety group in the past. I've run uh, like relapse prevention groups, radical acceptance groups. So yeah, kind of lots of different groups.
All array of them, right? When you hear communication styles, what comes to mind?
I think about the types of communication that we teach here in treatment, which would be like passive, aggressive, assertive communication skills. So we're really big on just identifying different ways to communicate, how to get our needs met effectively when communicating, and just kind of developing some insight into when we're maybe not doing that in the healthiest way.
I was just going to ask that. Have you ever ran a communications group?
So I guess not specifically, but I have run a DBT skills group, and one of the DBT subset skills is interpersonal effectiveness, which essentially is all about communication skills and getting our needs met from other people and having healthy relationships.
Um, so that reminds me, I'm going to get back to that, getting our needs met. I have a few questions for you about that. But before we get to that, what challenges have you faced throughout these group sessions? Specifically, challenges related to your maybe your DBT, and communications related questions. Um, so right now we're facing a time in our country where communication's a big thing. Everything's going over to technology. Especially our younger crowd. Our younger crowd is so focused on phones, as they're focused on technology. They communicate a lot differently than maybe when you and I grew up. So I feel like the communication gap is different. There's sometimes there's a big communication gap. So what challenges maybe do you face in the group sessions that um, yeah.
Yeah, I think some of the challenges, I think really two big things stick out to me. One, I think just a lack of insight into our own unhealthy ways of communication. When it comes to communication, we always want to put the focus on other people, right? How they're communicating to us, right? And don't always have the insight as to how we maybe respond or react to people. So sometimes just the lack of insight into our own lack of communication or ways that we could have done that better. And then I think technology also does play a huge role in communication, right? Like we live in an era where it's easier to text somebody than call somebody. It's easier to call somebody than talk to them face to face.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to post your message online than go talk to them face to face, right? Or have an argument or a disagreement or just a conversation with them. So I think that too, right? Like sometimes we hide behind this for sure.
Now I know besides groups, you said that you guys do one-on-one sessions. What challenges do you face during your one-on-one sessions with people?
I mean, I think any sort of challenge, right? Like change is hard, right? And so even change when it comes to our communication skills, right? Like we can be really motivated some days and not so motivated other days. So
Right.
just catching people when they're motivated, but consistency, right? Like it's hard when we're not either I'm not consistent as a counselor or patients just aren't consistent in, you know, trying to change and manage change.
Hmm. Yeah, I can understand that. Um, If you could, this might be a hard one to answer. I mean, maybe not. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think back to exactly what questions you might ask. But what are the backgrounds, if you can think about the backgrounds of most of the clients that you've worked with? Um, what are the backgrounds of most of the clients of your caseload, or maybe over the caseloads of your careers? And would you say that most of them either know college, some college, or they carry a degree, high school diplomas, or dropouts, or is it a whole array all the way across the board?
I think it's a whole array. I think specifically for my substance use patients that are here that are either substance use or dual diagnosed with substance use and mental health, a good portion of them, I don't know the numbers behind it, but I think the good portion would be some college or not some college, I'm sorry, some a high school diploma or like a GED.
Hmm.
Most people, I guess not everybody, but most people kind of don't have higher education past that.
Yep.
People who are only mental health and have never really struggled with substance use have a higher chance of having like some college. But I would say the good majority is either just like a high school diploma or some college with no degree.
Um, are the ones who have a college degree and have taken a communications class? You might not know if they've taken a communications class, but I know from going to college, usually communications classes are earlier on. Um, so for the ones who have taken or have a college degree, have are they tend do they tend to be easier to work with or communicate with than are the ones that come in who do not have a communications or a college background? Um, do they communicate their needs to you easier, especially in times of struggle, than those with no communications background or no college background?
I would say yes. In terms of, I guess I think the people who are more highly educated and have at least some college or at least have graduated a post secondary usually have some insight into their own behaviors and stuff like that. And so I would say that maybe they're a little easier to work with in terms of they're maybe more willing to make some changes or do some work. I think I'd also look at if somebody's like self referred versus like legally mandated. People who are self referred just tend to be a little bit more open to changing, communication styles versus people who, are maybe mandated to be in treatment.
Right. Understand. Um, what role does active listening play in your communication style? Or I'm sorry, let me switch this up. Sorry, I had the arrows to switch questions. First, what communication style do you identify with personally? And did you have the same one before learning communication skills?
So I definitely feel like I identify with the assertive, but I feel like I sometimes cross over to aggressive unintentionally,
Hmm.
especially if I'm trying to talk to like a customer service representative or somebody in my personal life. Um, Even sometimes in my work life, as I've grown as a counselor and a professional, I feel like I've become a little bit more direct with my communication. And so I know that sometimes that doesn't always fit well with people, whether that be patients or coworkers.
Do you feel like you were that same communication style prior to going through your communication skills courses, like in high school and stuff like that?
No, I feel like I was a little bit more passive than I feel like I've learned to become more assertive, like through communication, like just learning the different communication styles and also just through personal like growth and like self-esteem work.
Okay. Um, what roles do active listening play in your communication style, and can you give me an example?
I think active listening is the biggest part of communication, right? Because if we don't listen, then we're really not communicating, right? Like we're just talking back and forth, right? And so active listening, right, plays a role because if I'm not listening, then I'm just responding, right? And I'm not responding like to that person or what they said. I'm just responding with like what I want to be known or said. So I think active listening is huge. And even now, sometimes I find myself, right, like thinking about like how am I going to respond or what do I want to say instead of taking the time to focus and listen on what the person is actually saying.
Right. Sorry, I'm not trying to run through these. I'm just looking at the time.
No, that's
Um,
okay.
do you think communication skills have played a role in your success as a counselor? What about your personal life? And can you give me an example?
So I feel like definitely yes as a counselor. I feel like it has kind of helped me develop a little bit of a, I guess, reputation, whether it's like a good or a bad way, because I am a pretty direct counselor, and that communication style doesn't work for all patients, but it works well for a lot of patients. Um, so I feel like it's helped that way. In terms of personal life, I feel like it has because I am the go-to person. I feel like in my family, like if they need something done, it's like, oh, Amanda will take care of it. Amanda will call and get it done. Amanda will,
Mhm.
um, talk to this person or do it. So I feel like I can get it done most of the time.
I can see that. I was thinking about this the other day, actually, when I was in group with the other Amanda, and when people always say like they're like, oh, I want a when they talk about like a partner, whether it's a male or female or anything, they're always like, oh, I want somebody who's a go getter. I want somebody like this, and it's usually not like a go getter. It's usually just somebody who's direct, somebody who's assertive, somebody who speaks up for themselves. You know what I mean? And it's somebody who just learns how to communicate. It's not like a whole different person. It's just that they learn how to communicate what they want in life. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not that
Yeah.
they've changed anything. They've just learned how to communicate what they really want. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um,
Well, I
it's
think a little bit of that comes with independence too, right? You
right,
know what I
right.
mean? Like I feel like I've been in relationships with people who are super passive, and
Yeah,
it sometimes gets frustrating, right? Like in all facets of it, right? Like,
right,
hey, where do you want to go to dinner? I don't care, you pick. It's like I don't want to always have to pick, right? Like I
right.
want you to say what you want,
Right, right. Yeah, I'm kind of I'm kind of in that position right now.
right?
Kind
Like
of
I don't want
notice
to
that.
be the one in charge all the
Yeah,
time.
right, 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 right. Exactly. Um, uh, do you feel like it's a fair assessment that sometimes a person's needs don't get met because they lack the skills needed to communicate them?
Yes, I feel like people try to get their needs met the best way that they can, even though it's not always the most effective way, right? Or ways that they've been met in the past, right? So if they're in a relationship and they want something and all they have to do is raise their voice a little bit and then that person gives it and gets it met, then naturally that's going to spill over into all areas of their life, right? Including like a medical appointment, right? Then if they go to the receptionist and are trying to get their needs met, right? And then they're not met, right? If I just raise my voice, this is how I've gotten my needs met before. So I think people do try to revert back to unhealthy ways to get their needs met, especially the more emotional we might get, more emotionally charged, right? Like angry, frustrated, you know, disappointed, whatever it might be.
Right. Yeah, I agree there. Um,
Almost like we revert back to like the childhood stuff, right? Like kids, like when they throw temper tantrums, right? Like
right,
they're not throwing a temper tantrum because they want to be difficult, right? Like they're trying to get their needs met somehow, right? And then this is how they know to get your attention to say
right,
that they need their needs met.
right, right. Yep, exactly. And then when you give into it, then they learn that that's the way that they can get there. Right, right. Exactly. Right, right. Um, so we have chatted before about meeting a person where they're at in their life. And for my audience reading my paper who may not understand what that means, could you please explain it?
Wait, say that one more time.
Meeting a person where they're at in their life. We talked about this earlier, like meeting a person, where they're at, whether that be in a difficult struggle. Sometimes you got to meet them where they're at. And you said, that's one of the hardest things about being a counselor sometimes. And for my audience who's going to read my paper and who's not going to understand what that might not mean, could you explain it in your terms?
Yeah. Well, when people come into treatment, right, we have some pretty big expectations for them, right? Especially in regards to sobriety, lifestyle changes, right? Things that people might not be ready for, right? Like if the person who's in a domestic violence relationship comes in, we're expecting right away, hey, you came in for our help, you're ready to change. So you need to leave that relationship, right? And they might not be ready to leave that relationship. So it is very difficult sometimes as a counselor to step back and let people make their own decisions because people are in charge of their own lives, even if you don't necessarily agree with them. But there also is, right, like we have to be a support to people to be there when we're ready, right? As the counselor, I'm not in charge of people's lives. I'm just the GPS. They're driving the car. I'm just the GPS. So if I say turn right, they don't want to turn right, they don't have to turn right.
Right.
I
Yeah.
just think turning right is the best thing to do.
Right. 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 Absolutely. Right. Can't force them.
I think it's also understanding too that it's a lot easier for me to sit in the chair from an outside perspective and say all those things, right? But doing them in real life is something very difficult,
Right.
right? It puts a lot of challenge in it, right? Like, for example, like leaving a relationship, right? Yeah, it's easy for me to sit here and say, hey, you shouldn't be in this relationship for all of these reasons. I can see it pretty black and white on paper, leave this relationship, right? But that doesn't help the emotional side of things that people might be feeling.
Right. The GPS thing is a good analogy too. You know what I mean? You're GPS, you're sitting there, you're telling somebody to turn right, but you don't see that there might be a road work ahead. You know what I mean? You don't see some of the things that are going on, right?
Yeah.
But usually the advice is pretty spot on though.
I mean,
For the most part.
but at the end of the day, people are going to make their own decisions.
Right, right, right. I know.
And that's why I think some of the frustration though comes in with trying to meet people where they're at though, right? Like if I'm saying turn right and you keep going straight, now I'm just trying to recalculate.
Right,
And right, I only can recalculate so much
right, right,
before you have to, make a change.
right, right. I know. I know. I know. um, what challenges does this pose for you as a counselor? We kind of just answered this. What challenges do you believe clients face, especially those with limited communication skills?
I honestly think the biggest challenge is environment, right? Especially working in an outpatient setting, right? People come in for their appointments, they go back home to their environment, right? And our environment plays a huge factor in this, right? Especially our family and especially our family of origin, right? Like what we're taught growing up, right? Maybe some of the norms, communication style norms, right? That might have been taught growing up. It's hard to break that cycle sometimes,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
right?
that's
Because
a fact.
it's so embedded in people,
Right.
and that's where sometimes people have a hard time seeing some insight, right? Because it's hard to admit that, like, yeah, maybe I didn't grow up the best, or right, like maybe my parents weren't the best at this thing.
Yeah, I got lucky at least come being able to come back home to where I got a good support system. You know,
Yeah.
that's good for me. All right, let me get through. I got a few more questions. Do you think clients would be better prepared for these challenges if they were taught these communication skills in post-secondary school? Or, I'm sorry, secondary school.
I do. And I think even younger than that, though, right? Like, I think we do a really good job trying to teach children communication skills, right? Like, when kids start to cry when they're, kindergarten, first grade, what's wrong, right? Are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you tired? Right? But we stop
Mhm.
kind of asking that as people get older. So I think even like the elementary school and the middle school, right? Like, as hormones start to set in, right? Like, social media starts to become a more prevalent thing in kids' lives for sure. Just teaching them some of those communication skills.
Let's change gears really quick. What would you do if a team member repeatedly failed to communicate critical information, which then impacted the team's progress?
I would complain to my boss and probably make it known, right, that this is, starting to impact me and hope that something was done about it.
Assertive communication.
Yep.
Imagine you're in a team meeting and you need to communicate an unpopular decision from leadership. How would you approach the messaging?
Um, I definitely am somebody who's not afraid to speak up, especially in team meetings. But I think one thing that's important is to try to keep it focused on like me or how it's impacting me or like my
Mhm.
personal experience because like I can't speak for the team or other people on the team. So
Okay. Now imagine you're 18 again, a fresh high school graduate, but haven't had the opportunity to learn these valuable communication skills yet. I guess I should say before you took the psych class that you took. So instead of identifying with assertive, you identify with one of the other styles, maybe passive. Keeping this in mind, would your answers to my last two questions be different at that age without these skills? If so, explain.
for sure, I feel like when I was in high school, I wasn't always somebody to speak up or speak my mind. Um, so I feel like, yeah, it definitely has helped to do that. And I think also, too, just the environment, right? Like the longer I've been in this working environment and the more supported I feel, the more comfortable I feel to speak up.
Okay, great. So this leads up to my last question then. Um, so keeping all that in mind, what we just talked about, especially the last question then, um, you had the privilege, I shouldn't say privilege, you worked your ass off, pardon my French, to get through college. Um, and, you've taken a lot of classes to gain the skills that you've gained. Um, Now, a lot of people don't have them skills. So, last question is, do you think, in your expert opinion, that we are failing our kids as a society because we don't require advanced communication skills in secondary schools across the nation?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's important to start the communication, but I think twofold, right? Even including parents, right? Like when we start talking kids, we got to start talking family systems, you
Yep.
know. So I think it also starts in the home
Mhm.
too, like what we're modeled and what we're shown.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's good. That'd be good to add in there too. And I should put that down too. Um, Thank you. I know you got to run. It's after
So
4:30, right? Huh?
that's okay. My person's not here yet, so
Oh,
we
okay.
got.
I appreciate it. Appreciate your help.
Any other questions, or that feels
Huh? No, it was good. I That was what I wrote down.